Really insidious thing about violent extremist ideology. You are attracted to this because you're hurting. You're attracted to this ideology, and the ideology tells you you're a warrior for your people, whoever your people are.
The problem with suicidal thoughts is how intense they are. It feels like they will never end. And when you're in that, you have this kind of tunnel vision. It feels like it's going to last forever.
Majority of people look at a homeless person. They're a drug addict. They made bad choices. If homelessness was a punishment for bad choices, we'd all be homeless.
The women that are struggling, that gives the blowjob at $5, this for me is pure 100% exploitation.
I stabbed my wife 3 times one night because she wouldn't let me finish my bottle of vodka. Still not thinking I had a drink problem.
Ultimately, 1 in 2 Americans will experience family estrangement. So that's 50% of the population.
To be completely honest with you, I am a refugee, but I'm not just a refugee.
Because I am George, I'm not George with Down syndrome or Down's George, because that's not me.
Welcome to Purposeful Empathy, a show that is dedicated to amplifying the voices of people from across the globe who understand the world needs more empathy and are doing something about it. This season will inspire you to empathize with people who are regularly marginalized and misunderstood. You won't want to miss a single episode, so hit the subscribe button now. Thanks for watching and enjoy the show.
One thing that people have to know, should know and have to know is that sexuality doesn't have the same meaning for everyone. This idea that sex is linked directly to love and sharing and romance and the whole thing that comes with it, that is pretty recent in history. As a matter of fact, sexuality is exchanged for a ton of things beside affection and love. And there's a lot of confusion about this because there's a direct connection to this psychological state of mind. If you have sex for any other reason than this intimate attachment, it may hurt your psyche or it will hurt it. And this is when for the person doing this kind of, giving these kind of service, then it becomes an area of shame.
Welcome to a new episode of Purposeful Empathy. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Francine Tremblay, a scholar, educator, and lifelong activist whose work bridges academia and lived experience. Her teaching and research center on inequality, the social construction of deviance, sexuality, and social movements. A retired sex worker and longtime member of Stella, Montreal's organization by and for sex workers, Francine brings a deeply informed and compassionate lens to her advocacy. Her voice is vital in the ongoing work to challenge stigma and support the rights and dignity of sex workers. This season, I'm shining a spotlight on people who often feel marginalized or misunderstood. And through each conversation, my goal is to better understand different lived experiences in order to widen our circle of empathy. Given her lifelong commitment to research and advocacy, I've invited Francine to share her insights on challenging stigma, advancing the rights of sex workers, and fostering inclusive, evidence-informed approaches to social reform. Welcome to the show, Francine.
Happy to be here.
I searched far and wide in the world for somebody who could speak to this topic, and you're down the road from me at Concordia, so I think it's fantastic. It's great to meet you. It's great to meet you. A very impressive bio, and as I said before we hit record, I really enjoyed the book that you published, which I'll of course include in the show notes. I wonder what you might want to share with our listeners or viewers about yourself that wasn't revealed in your bio, and what you'd like them to know about you personally to provide context to the passion that you bring around your research and advocacy.
Well, the first thing I want to say right from the beginning is that I think there are some, I will name her Jen Clayman, because she is such an important part of my activism, friend, colleague, and I think she should be on media a lot more than she wants to be. I think what brought me to, well, first of all, I was not an activist before, what you call an activist before I was well into my 40s. I come from a family where, politics, conversation around the table was, always important. Especially my father was somebody engaged, was love history, and he gave me that desire to learn since I'm a child. And it's funny because towards both, my both BAs, which of course the first one was a real mess. So okay, let's do another one then. I think I came to a realization that I was extremely privileged. And so the very first time I connected with really real life was at the Native Woman Shelter. And I spent 5 years as a volunteer there, and this really opened a window on the world that for me was totally, the unknown. This is where I actually witnessed so much disrespect from people, stigma from people, from, like you go to the bank or you go to the store, or this was my first experience, and I stayed there for 5 years. When I went back to Concordia, this is when I met Fran Shaver, and she's the one who told me about Stella. So I ended up going at Stella, and oh my God, I mean, oh, I used to be a sex worker. I didn't have the vocabulary. And so that was the beginning of really trying to understand what people do. What does it mean, volunteering? What does it mean to be connected to your own community? And in the meantime, for a few summers, I did all sorts of odd jobs to there was a situation for 5 years where I was totally, I don't remember ever being poor in my life, but during these 5 years, because of certain circumstances, I'm embarrassed to say poor because really, no, I wasn't poor, but I needed to work, and I ended up in different factories. And this, I tell you, Anita, it was the biggest realization. This is how people live. This is what people do. And this is when I fully realized, again, the inequality, the injustices, the inequity, not inequality, inequity, the lack of justice, the disrespect of employers towards their employee. Anyway, it was a real eye-opening. And I think this is how I started to link this to my teaching and real experience. And I bring this in the classroom all the time. So this is how I came into, getting involved in activism, in giving back because I received so much. It's luck. There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of the people that gave me so much. So it was time to give back. And that was, as I said, the beginning of being more involved in action, to change things.
Well, thank you for sharing that additional context. I always find that question helpful beyond the bio, because the bio is impressive, but there's always a personal story in the background. So I guess the next question I want to ask, just to help, bring everyone who's listening and watching onto the same page, I need to understand what sex work is and sort of travel down a little bit of a road around why it's so highly stigmatized. So to complicate this question that I want to ask, I'm actually going to read the opening quote from the introduction of your book. It's by an escort in 2019. All sex workers, no matter where they fall within the hierarchy, deserve labor rights, respect, and dignity. We deserve to be able to organize together to form community, to keep us safe. We deserve the ability to properly screen our clients without them being in fear of criminal repercussions. We deserve to be able to report an act of violence without fear of stigma. The same as Bob at Subway if a client throws hot soup in their face. We must, as a society, be able to arrive at the conclusion that sex work is hard and it is here to stay. Now, later in your book, you talk about the whore symbol. And another quote you write is, without a doubt, sex workers violate long-held family norms and values. And in doing so, their claims attract, offend, and provoke disgust. So I want to understand, what does sex work mean? And why do you think people misunderstand? What do they understand about sex work, sex workers? And what would you like to say to educate society? I know that's a lot of questions, but let's just, learn a little bit about what we're going to dive deep into.
I think the first thing we need to say is Carol Lee created that expression, sex work, in order to underline the labor dimension of it. And in doing so, Carol really wanted to bring women together and look at labor. Recently, and it's funny because right now I'm working on an article that was refused twice because I'm bringing back where the history of the horse stigma, the history, Western, yes, Canada was a colony. As a matter of fact, in many ways, we still are legally. And I'm bringing back the circumstances, the context, when and where and how this stigma was created. And my main argument is that to this day, it's still very much alive. So, sex work is a new expression created by Carol, and I think it's around the mid-70s. And it's something that I have been questioning recently, because a lot of women in the industry don't want to be to use sex work, be called a sex worker. So in an article, and this one and the one in 2021, I often use women laboring in the sex industry. Okay, women exchanging services, fantasies for a fee. Okay, now the stigma surrounding the exchange of sexual services, I think that there's two things today. It used to be, the stigma used to be based on health issue. Okay, we have to go back to the mid 1800s. It used to be based on middle class value, family value. sexuality between, heterosexual, within an intimate relationship. So all these rules, the social purity movement, which, by the way, Colette Parent argued that we did not look at enough, that we need to go back to this time. So I think it's still there, but I think that today, what is the hardest to talk about is this issue of exploitation and consent. For many prohibitionists, it is absolutely impossible that any woman would do that kind of exchange. It's impossible that women can give their consent for such an exchange. And it's always somehow, from the prohibitionist argument, it is pure exploitation. And so there's two things that I think are running together. First, this incredible link to the past, to criminal activity, because who wants to associate with, a sex worker or a prostitute? Well, another criminal. They're always linked to something, and again, trafficking. This is still very much within prohibitionist argument. As a matter of fact, it is still there because they won in 2014. Their voice was more important than women laboring in the industry, because they managed to get this bill, C-36, or the bill that created for de facto for the very first time in Canada. It is now, prostitution is within it's a criminal act for the very first time. So this is still there. But today, as a matter of fact, it's funny because it is a question for the final, for the exam for my sexual labor at Concordia. The argument today is a lot more about women's exploitation. The fact that women are exploited, the fact that they cannot give their consent. So you have, again, if I go back to, the question, it is linked to the past, these norms that were created by the middle class, la bourgeoisie, and today concentrated more on exploitation and this idea of consent.
So let me ask, because I imagine that there's a community within sex workers that feel they have agency over their body and they're making an economic decision about what they choose to do, and that's what you've just elevated. I also heard you use the word trafficking earlier, which made me think there are still lots of women who are in the industry, even girls in the industry, who are properly exploited. Mm-hmm. So how do we also keep their experience held while we're also giving agency to the workers?
This is where, okay. First of all, let's debunk the trafficking. Trafficking is a criminal act. And it requires, it's too far in my memory, and I don't talk about it often enough, but Chris Brockett and Colette Parent gave us a clear definition, and they did this with the RCMP. This is clear trafficking. Okay. It's under false promises, pretenses, and this is trafficking, and it's punishable. It's a criminal offense, punishable by law. The other side that people don't pay enough attention to is women around the world that will take chances. It's not trafficking, but it's illegal immigration or migration, because they will take what we call a calculated risk in order to get out of their country in order to find work. Laura Augustin has written a wonderful book, and also there's a Butterfly in Toronto that's their business. They're really, this is their forte. It's especially for women from migrant women. So this is the first thing that you always hear this by prohibitionists, and they use the language they use often is the little girl, les fillettes, okay? And of course, if you say this, you and I, we will get like les fillettes, okay? It automatically, you know, okay? It makes no sense. So, and you have, of course, you know, the woman in the industry with education, with money, class, you know, she has everything to, you know, manage her time, manage everything. And you have everything in between. And you have, you know, there's something that often will create a rift is like survival sex work. Well, who am I to tell someone how they should pay their rent or their drug or their whatever they need? Who am I to tell them? And who am I to know their condition? That's why I never use choices. I use decisions. They get up in the morning and they decide what they will do today in order to pay their rent, feed their kids, whatever they need. Okay? And so, and it's funny, when I think about it, when feminists in the 60s, you know, one of the pitch was ends off my body, or my body, my choice. Oops. I guess did they signify that it was only certain women who had the right to their body? Or all women, we had the right to make decision about our body? Granted, some don't have much choices. As a matter of fact, some have no choices at all. Like wake up people, they have no choices at all. But, and this is where I think it's the biggest battle is to start sectioning our activism. We're there for all women. I want all women to be safe. I want all women to one day, if they want to leave, they leave. Activism, you cannot have section of activism. I think it's important to have these laws should be for everyone. And these laws should be for safety. These laws should safety of all. And I'm sorry, I probably...
No, but I know what my next question is going to be, if I can jump in, right? And
jump in, please.
More might come to you. So it's interesting that you're really centering women making decisions on purpose about what work they're going to do.
Right.
Okay, and some people have more choices than other, more capacity than other based on their economics or their lived experience or whatever. But you still want to give them agency. So I'm curious, my next question is, okay, we have this impression about people who work in the sex industry as prostitutes or escorts, that they don't have as much choice. Therefore, they're doing it only because they have. So they probably are doing it kind of reluctantly. They have shame about it. And I think I want to ask, since you know many sex workers, you know people who are in the industry, what would they say to like the layperson out in the world to demystify some of the work? What do we not understand about this work that might give us a lens to appreciate them with a degree of empathy, not as an, oh, you poor sex worker, but a degree of like, oh, that's what it's about. Like now I can appreciate what you're doing a little better.
First of all, there's two things. There's this whole range of different services, from full body work to you don't even touch your client. You don't, okay. I think many will travel, okay? One day, they're doing full body work, and then one day say, well, no, I'm done. They will go into webcam, or they will be a dominatrix, or I think they have many, and this is a question of choice, and this is a question of being able to do so. Okay, and I think this is one thing that people should know, and one thing that people have to know, should know, and have to know is that sexuality doesn't have the same meaning for everyone. This idea that sex is linked directly to love and sharing and romance and the whole thing that comes with it, that is pretty recent in history, as a matter of fact, that it's very not around the world. As a matter of fact, sexuality is exchanged for a ton of things beside affection and love. That is the first thing, that above everything else, people should try to understand that no, sex for me is maybe not the meaning that it has for you. And there's a lot of confusion about this because there's a direct connection to this psychological state of mind. If you have sex for any other reason than this intimate attachment, it may hurt your psyche, or it will hurt it. And this is when, for the person doing this kind of, giving these kind of service, then it becomes an area of shame.
Yeah, because I read in your book, contrary to popular belief, physical violence is not sex workers' primary concern. In fact, sex workers' greatest fear was to be discovered and exposed to family and friends.
Wait, because then you are this aberrant, this creature that you're doing something that is, I don't know, abnormal, sick, or disgusting, or how can you do this? And I don't know, you become this, and all of a sudden, just like I remember whenever gay, lesbian, whatever, you become that thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember how, the biggest issue with gay men was, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son. It's like you're having sex everywhere all the time. It's like you become it.
That's your identity. Yeah.
Yeah, you're full. You're like, it just like, you become that thing that they watch enough. Even me. It's funny because I have a problem. I'm getting, after working 20 years in loud music, I'm getting a problem with my hearing. So I went, and the lady was very nice. She tried to have it paid by la CSST. And I'm out at Concordia. I'm out everywhere. Who cares? I mean, they're so long. I mean, 88 and now. But when she asked me what I did, I had hesitation. I felt I felt like not saying it. And then I said, well, I work in clubs. I know I work in bars. What were you doing? Well, okay. Let's limit it at least for dancing. There you go. But I mean, even then there was an hesitation, and it's still valid, that hesitation. Nobody in my family knows. They all died before knowing this. My brother knew, but nobody else.
And why? And so that's interesting. So you felt shame, or you were worried about how your family would treat you in light of that new information, even though they knew you. That single act or that decision to join dancing was going to somehow ostracize you from your family or disappoint your family or something like that.
Disappoint.
That was just going to disappoint.
Anita, I didn't stay married, and I was disowned by my godmother. Doesn't take much, though. I mean, I think that's another thing. And I know sex workers that have been disowned. They didn't ask to be outed, and they were. And again, it's funny that we should talk about shame, because you see, when you try to get to emotion, first of all, we have to be careful because usually I only interview, even in the last paper I'm doing right now, is just friends, activists. I always think it's going into a place that I'm not sure I want to go unless that person would say that they would talk about it, because it is something that I struggled with my entire existence, that I was not the woman I was supposed to be. Mm. I'm very self-reflective. Not everybody is. Mm-hmm. They can have a malaise, but they won't identify it. Mm-hmm. In the 10 years I spent at Stella, I was never able to get in any emotional place. We cried, we got angry, but it was never identified. I have this malaise, and I'm pretty sure I'm not alone, but to identify it and to get to it, it's like we're a disappointment to other women. We're a disappointment because I'm not following your rule and regulation. That it was hurt. Is what's so painful. And I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one.
So it's interesting because you put the stake in the ground that women have agency over the decisions that they made. So you feel you made fully empowered decisions about the work that you were doing. And you personally might not have felt moral shame about the work you were doing. You knew what you were doing and why you were doing it, and you were okay with it. But you stayed silent because you knew that speaking would invite people to reflect on you without a sense of empathy at all, with the sense of judgment and all of that hurtful disappointment and the potential for abandonment and all that. Yeah. And that must be core to the experience of people in the sex industry, because it is so maligned, misunderstood, judged from a moral standpoint, that the people that are involved in that are morally inferior. Right.
And it's funny because I go back to what I'm doing right now. I call this lateral violence. Like lateral, it's a symbolic violence that we use with words. We're good. Middle class bourgeois are very good on this. Okay, this symbolic violence. Oh, we're nice, but the words are cutting. The language is the looks, the and and this is what sometimes we just say, okay, we won't talk about it. Okay. And it's funny because while you were saying about agency and everything, remember this new age approach in the 80s and 90s, this big new age, I love and approve myself. You look at the mirror, and it's so funny because I keep saying this to children, to my student. I would say, love and approve yourself goes very well in your bedroom, but you have to get out. And this is when you're confronted by the other people, by their language, by their attitude towards you. The book I read, I wrote was, the other one is on my MA, and it's Self-Identity and Collective Action. This is where I really get in the self, and from a George Herbert Mead person, this symbolic interactionism, this symbolic exchange that you and I have. Like right now, we're having what you call, like we're having a dialogue, we're having a conversation. If I was having a conversation with a less interested person, with a less sympathetic person, all of a sudden I would say something and then bang, the conversation is over. Or there's like, you did what? Okay, we can talk about it, but that would be the place where, oops, okay, let me go back into myself, and we're done here. And I'm pretty sure that, Fudge, I'm not unique, but it's a place that it's hard to get at. I'm trying to do this right now, but I don't have the funds. I don't have the funds to do. I just do, and right now I'm doing an exploratory paper.
So what do you think some people don't understand about sex work that actually could be, I don't know what words I would use. Like, is there any fun to it? Is there, what's the satisfying aspect to doing this work? Because I think there's also an impression that people who purchase the services of sex workers, whether it's at a bar watching dancers, whether it's a prostitute that they're, an escort, whatever, that we have this impression that they are also kind of low life types, right? So what are some of the positive things that people might be interested to know about in that relationship?
I think, first of all, we have to always go back to how much agency do you have, how much leeway do you have, will bring this sense of, oh God, I'd rather do this than anything else. This is, like, this is perfect for me. There's a sense of freedom. There's a sense of, and also, I mean, I will speak for myself. I tried working, I was, 18 years old. I tried to work in an office. I lasted half a day. Not for me. I tried a few, not for me. And I think there's a lot of women like me, a lot of women who say no. There's a sense of freedom, that you're not caged in You're not 9 to 5. And another thing that I find, because now I can say 20 years in the industry and 25 years at Concordia, I will tell you, bring me back in the 20 years in the industry. Because there, if I didn't like something, was screw you. And when I went to see if something happened in the club, oh yes, there was story. Yes, the story, the terrible story. Yes, we all got them. But when I said this client here is not okay or do something, they would believe me. There wouldn't be 5 hours of questioning. At Concordia, you have this symbolic thing that it's when I think it's all in every university, I'm saying, but it's a different world where you have to kind of judge and check if the person in front of you can be trusted or not. You don't have the same mentality. So I would say, and I see this today when I talk to sex workers, you can see that they know what they want. They ask what they want. And they have, that's what the word I'm looking for. The more control you have, the more fun you have. The more control you have on your day's work, the more satisfying, I don't know if I can call this fun, more satisfying, more, yes, I'm having a good day, this is good. But control on your fees, control on your client. And you know what, Anita, I cannot talk about it because I don't know enough, but the little I know, the woman in the sex industry today, they remind me of the woman in the sex industry back in the 70s. First of all, you had mature women. The industry was not the same, was very different. The rules, the regulation, you had, like you still had some sort of brothels that was very different. You had family-owned business, very different. It's funny because today I can see this with young women. They're really in charge. Oh my God, they signed contract today. Oh no, it's very different. So again, I go back to this idea to answer your question, more control means more satisfaction in this line of work.
So, okay, I'm really getting a sense that you are specifically speaking to the sex workers who choose to be in the industry, and that it's so interesting. I've already learned so much. I'm wondering what you would say. What kind of empathy does the world need for women who don't have choice? So I know you talked about like the criminal activity of trafficking, right? Like that's illegal and it should be illegal and it's, reprehensible. But there are still kids. I mean, I see signs all over the city, where kids on social media are being brought into the industry, and there's all sorts of very, like I have a 9-year-old daughter. I have to worry about what's going to happen to her on the internet. I wonder also, we haven't even talked about this, but pornography has changed so much, right? So I just wonder if we could just speak a little bit for a moment to the folks, to the primarily women who are in an industry where they might not feel as much agency and control. What do we need to think about for them?
Oh God. I will get the rotten tomato or rotten eggs in my face. This is the place where what's going on with our young woman on the internet? What is the sex work is not a game. To put pictures on the internet, I see this every day because, like my boyfriend, I mean, I'm 73, he's 78, I mean, I don't care what he's looking at because he has this, we know what we're looking at. And I'm not on no social media. I am not on social media. I think, oh, what are we supposed to do with this, Anita? They're everywhere. We have to teach our young women that, showing your breasts and showing these very revealing pictures on social media has consequences. This, you cannot remove this, and it gives the wrong idea. It gives this wrong idea that I don't know what kind of idea, because this is not where I'm at. But I don't know how to answer your question, because I don't know what to do with this technology that is rampant. I don't know how to answer your question. It exasperates me.
So, in full disclosure, there's a very famous strip bar called Wanda's in Montreal. And it's considered one of the haut de gamme kind of.
Yes, absolutely. I know where it is. It's right next to Concordia.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So for, I guess, about 8 months of my life when I was doing my undergraduate degree, I worked there as a waitress. So I wasn't a dancer. I wore tuxedo, shirt, and skirt, but I saw what was happening. I saw the 3 stages, and I worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, which probably was a different clientele than the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday nights, right? You've got the parties and the frat boys and the stag parties, pre-hockey game, post-hockey game, different crowd. But I made the decision to work there because I'd been a waitress before, and I knew that I was going to earn a lot of money. And I went in, I clocked in. I was never a minute late, because if you were 1 minute late, you got docked 2 hours. And the bars closed at 3 a.m. We had to clean the ashtrays back at the time. We had to go back up and give our bar tab and to the bus boys. And I was in a taxi at 3:15 and back in my apartment at 3:20 sleeping. And when people would want to order rum and coke for me, I'd charge the rum and coke, but I'd ask the bar, just make it a coke for me. I was not drinking on the job. Everybody knew. I think that the bouncers knew that I was going in and I was going out surgically. And I didn't associate very much with a lot of the other dancers. I think there was quite a big distinction between the wait staff and the dancers to begin with, but I looked at what was happening kind of from an anthropological point of view, and it changed my perception in so many ways about the single moms that were working, and this made sense for them for whatever reason. The women that were going to college, and this is the way they could afford it. The women who had been in the industry for 20 years and who made a point to work on themselves so that they could continue working as long as they could. There was one dancer I remember, she was the only dancer of the entire bar that didn't have to come in at the same time because she was that good on stage. She could make her own hours. I watched agency, but I also know that not every strip bar was that degree of strong, powerful women.
No.
And this is back in the day where you weren't able to touch. There was no contact. And I really understand what you're saying. When a woman felt like she was being disrespected, she would go tell the bouncer, and the guy was out the door. There was no questions asked. There was just an understanding. So I get all of that, but I think I wouldn't want the entire conversation for us to have to not hold space for the folks that really feel exploited and really feel treated like dirt. And I think about Indigenous women, for example. I think about missing and murdered women who are in the industry for reasons that don't have a lot of agency. So I just want to hold space for those ladies too.
And we have to, and in the paper, I know in my consent and exploitation that I wrote in 2021, I hold the government, the Canadian government, directly responsible for the murders in BC, in downtown Vancouver, downtown East Side. I hold to this day, and I say it. It's taped. It's at Concordia in my class. I hold the government and their laws directly responsible for Indigenous women, for all murdered women in the sex industry. First of all, this criminalization of the industry means that often the client of this part, okay, of the industry, okay, because you can imagine that a client that pays $1,000 a night has a different aim. Okay, I'm not saying they're all right, but they have a different aim. The women that are struggling, okay, that gives the blowjob at $5, okay, this for me is pure 100% exploitation. You're exploiting human misery. You're exploiting human despair at some point, okay? And this is something, and here it is, okay, now I talk as not an activist, I will talk as an intellectual, a scholar. This for me is unacceptable, that as a woman, as a Canadian citizen, I accept that for a moral debate, the government did not make the decision to decriminalize and offer a clear program for women if they want to get out of the industry. I created a program in the 90s for a transition meaning that if you want to get out, it's not for you, you're drinking too much, you're taking too much drugs, so on to fall out, okay? There's some women that have been victimized, that they hated the very first moment they entered the industry to the day they got out. They hated every single moment. They cried every day. But you see, this is what everybody's focusing on. So what happened is that, okay, we won't talk about this. So what happened is that the only people that talk about it are the prohibitionists. I talk about it as a woman. I talk about it as a researcher. We have to stop hiding the fact that there is an entire population in the industry that are exploited.
Yeah.
But because it may hurt our movement, we don't talk about it. So who do you think talk about it? The prohibitionists.
So it's complicated because there's all those experiences, right? And there's also, the context. Are you in a city? Are you in the suburbs? Are you somewhere else? Are you working online? I mean, it's not one shop fits all. It's not.
Absolutely not.
Right. So, okay, so let's talk about Stella for a bit, okay? Because it's a Montreal sex workers' rights organization.
Yes.
Founded by and for sex workers.
Yes.
It explores how a group of ostracized female-identified sex workers transform themselves into a collective to promote the health and well-being of women in the industry. But it's weighed down by this old and tenacious whore symbol. The sex workers at Stella had to find a way to navigate the criminality of sex work and sex workers in order to do advocacy work and support work and create safer environments. So, I mean, is Stella like an example that other people in other cities have followed? And can you tell us a little history? Because it's kind of interesting that work that is criminalized and maligned through the psyche of most people in the community, all of a sudden looking to advocate for themselves, knowing that there's a breadth of experiences, but you're saying like, hey, it's happening one way or the other. We at least have the right to health. We at least have the right to, security. So tell us a little bit about this.
What's interesting about every community organization by and for sex workers, it started with Maggie's, if I'm not mistaken, in Toronto. And I think, again, here comes the egg in my face. They were created during the HIV program.
Mhm.
So, because the main argument, which of course I'm not supposed to say, is you're not giving me money because you want my safety. You're giving me money because you want to be safe. So I won't give you HIV. You're not giving me money because you have any respect for, or are interested in having a real discussion and a real dialogue around decriminalization. You're not giving me money because you like me or you respect me, never mind like, you respect me. You're giving me money because you don't want me to infect you. And this is for every community organization. That's what gets me into trouble all the time. Because I say it, and I will say it again, as I'm saying it right now. Stella is a wonderful, absolutely, they're brilliant now, especially in later years. Stella will be 30 years in a few days and it has changed towards the year for the better. It has become such a wonderful organization. And they do so much like outreach and it's the offer on health, on laws, on consultation, on what they offer women who wants to go at Stella. Okay, they offer all range of services in order to live better. Okay, but the fact remains that all these organizations cannot take the federal government head on because they receive grants. They don't get grants in order to fight the government.
Right.
And that's my beef, and it's still today. It's the same one I have. You have no respect. I don't ask you. I don't need your approval, for God's sake. As a woman, as a Canadian woman, all women in Canada should be protected the same way. So now they're criminalized, and of course, when something happened, well, they knew the risk. And so this is, Stella has done so much for so many women, and it still does. It's there for the celebration. But they cannot do everything. And I know, let's go back to this population, okay, that you want to talk about a bit more. I was on a program that everybody told me not to go with Isabelle Maréchal. It's out. God. So it's called Zone Libre. So at one point, and there was some true victims there, okay, women that never enjoy one flipping second. So I said, okay, I have a plan. 5 years. You give us 5 years. You give $20,000 to every woman that wants to go out they cannot do this anymore. They never were anyway. $20,000 for 5 years. You give us at Stella, each woman, and we work together with our population, and we see what we can do in 5 years. Oh, you want to do what? Women don't even have this kind of. I said, do you want to start working on a project? Do you want starting on a solution? On just clapping your mouth that these poor women? Okay, so what are we doing? You know very well, Anita, that you cannot just step out and everything is rosy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few women I have worked with that did not make it outside. Their lifestyle, the violence around them, the drug intake has created physical problem, emotional. People don't think. People don't realize what they're asking us to do. So let's say 1,000 women that would accept to get in the program. Okay. I have designed, I had my second BA, I designed a program. A transition means that you're in no man's land here. Okay, let me be with them, okay, at this place. Let's see where we're going. Give us a chance. There's no chance. All we hear is prohibitionists smashing the sex industry, smashing Stella, smashing all of us all the time, but no solution. The solution is to take her out and then use her as a poster child for abuse in the sex industry. Let me say something. I use at the Concordia in the sexual labor course, I use this woman that she's in the sexual labor, I think, sex for sale or something, by the National Film Board. I met her 10 years ago, if not more. She's still crying. She still looks like she was in the sex industry yesterday. Are you using this woman to show how painful? Are you using her pain and her difficulty in order to promote your idea? Mm-hmm. I have a serious problem here. Because I wonder, it's a good thing that she stays in that state so you can make a point? I don't know. Every time I see her, I say, wait a second. Mm-hmm. Is it good for prohibitionists to keep women in that state in order to make their point? I don't know, but it's not good for me. Because at one point, I'm not saying you're not staying with scars. But at one point, you don't need to cry on every interviews.
Yeah.
I love the question on this particular, as a matter of fact, I think I love more the question on this population than on the other one, and on what we're doing at like what we're trying to do in decriminalization and talking about the sex industry. I think we need to talk more about this population that is struggling, that don't have much control over their work. We need to talk more about it, but with people like you and I. Mm-hmm. We need to take this discussion out of only the prohibitionist, and we need to put it out there in a genuine concern. We have nothing, I have nothing to gain, nothing to lose in whatever I'm doing today for a very long time. I don't need anything. I don't want to be right. I don't want to. I just want to open a dialogue. I tried, Anita, I tried. Impossible. Impossible. Nobody wants to have a real dialogue and bring us together to talk about real, genuine suffering.
Well,
I don't. No, go.
It's interesting that you say that because my last conversation was with a man by the name of Arno Michaelis, who was 7 years in the neo-Nazi movement from 17 to 24. And now he works to not decriminalize, to de-radicalize young people. And he kept repeating a sentence, and I think our interview ended on this note where he said, hurt people hurt people. So he said, regardless of where you are in your radicalization, on the left, on the right, it could be, Hamas, it could be anti-Semitic, it could be racist, sexist. It doesn't matter where your hate stems from, but the hate comes from pain somewhere. Yes. And it almost, it really just changed for me. I still remember Biden kind of stepping up, and he said the decision he made to run for president back in the day was when there was that march, right? And the tiki torches. And then, of course, we heard Trump talking about, good people on both sides, right? And I don't want to politicize this. I just want to surface the idea that we can't just look at those people as all just bad people, just like we look at prostitutes a certain way or the people who use the services a different way. There's more to it below the surface. And that's the important work that we need to have, which is why, not to refer to my own work, but we all have the capacity for empathy. But the idea of being purposeful about our empathy is the idea of trying to understand people's experiences and be a little bit curious and not come in with your own frame of reference and worldview and necessarily project your feelings about a situation onto somebody else. I think there's so much more to be gained from listening to one another and oh, that's why X, Y, Z, or oh, you've just opened up an aperture for me to think about things differently. And I think we have to get to that place where we're just out of echo chambers, out of a self-policing way to see things because of what family we grew up in or what television shows we watch or what political party we vote for, and just to sort of get to know each other a little bit.
100%. And it's funny because in the self and identity, at one point, I think it's my collective action at the end. And this I learned at the Native Woman Shelter. That was where I learned everything about my role. I was working with a professor at the time. She was my professor. I took the family class. Her name is Caroline Knowles. I still remember. I owe her so much. And I'm at the shelter. And she was doing research on schizophrenia. And this is where I realized, that woman cannot get angry. Mm-hmm. We're not supposed to get angry. And boy, I'm not a woman then. And I said, I was there. And I lived through this time in the 80s where everybody was self-diagnosed and each other as a schizophrenic. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to a woman, I said, you know what? Get angry. Get angry as much as you want. You can scream at me. You can do whatever you want. This from my face. Get angry because you have every reason in the world to be angry. And I started to realize that in this environment, because don't forget, in the bar, you get angry. In the industry, you gotta get angry as much as you want. But when you step out in this other world, oh, you're not supposed to do anything. And this is when I started to say, okay, when it's safe, you get angry. Who am I to tell you how to feel? What to feel? What you need? I have no idea what you need. You tell me what you need. Oh, what? This is strange for so many women here in that pool that you're talking about, that we are talking about right now. What do you need? What do you want right now?
It makes me think of, I don't want to interrupt you, but Gloria Steinem wrote a piece that I think I saw in an Oprah magazine. And she was saying, and, I love Gloria Steinem. She's, one of the feminists in the second wave of feminists. She's in her 80s now, and she's still doing the good work. And there was a group of women gathered together in a New York apartment, and they were talking about girls in Kenya who were part of the Maasai tribe that were turning towards prostitution as a way of helping their families. And they were like, we should do something about this. And one of the women in the group, this is after like a bit of brainstorming, said, we should ask them what they need from us. And do you know what answer they got when they went to actually inquire with these Maasai girls that were involved in the sex trade? They said, we need wood. And Gloria and her friends are like, you need wood? And she's like, yeah, because then we can build a fence around our maize and we don't have animals eating our crops that we're going to sell in the marketplace.
I love it.
Right? Right?
Right. You got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Ask people what, and I learned that. Okay. I learned that it's at the women's shelter. I learned so much and I never forgot, because I learned, like, it's funny. I learned how to be me and teach them how to be them. They don't know how to be them because they're not allowed to be them. You're not allowed to be. When you work in this kind of environment, in what I always call the straight world, it's like you're not allowed to be them. I think about, the woman I was raised with. It's like they would die before transgressing a norm.
Right.
Ah, Jesus. And it's like, so this is what I want. As a matter of fact, this is inspiring me for teaching, for exchanging with students. And this is really where we need to go more and more, is we need to ask them, what do you need? What do you want from us? And this is hard because when you're part of the government, like social worker, or when you get paid by the government, they don't want you to ask them what they want. They want to pay for what they think.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is why I never worked. I never got paid at Stella. I never got paid anywhere, because I cannot do this.
Right.
I cannot do this kind of job.
Right. Okay. I'll come to my last question in a minute, but the penultimate questions, I don't know if this is a hard thing to do or an easy thing to do. Maybe you need a minute to think about it. I don't know. But if you could speak to, we talked about two groups, and I even don't feel it's fair that we've put them into two groups, because I know a lot of other little groups along a continuum, but you know what I mean, right?
Yes.
If you could speak to someone in the sex industry, what advice would you give them? If they're in the first group where they have agency and are making decisions about themselves, what advice would you give them? And then if you could speak to someone who's not pleased about the work, but they don't feel they have much choice, or there's something that's oppressive in that, what advice would you give them? I would just be interested in hearing that.
The first one, of course, for me, and for women, I think financial security, independence has to come first. It's the most important thing for me. So for those who have the most control, save, 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 save nonstop. As a matter of fact, that's what sustained me from 17 years old to today. Financial independence. So this is the most important thing. And of course, be safe, and if you have financial independence, well, you can say no. You have a lot more control. For those who have very little control, I would say reach out to Stella, reach out to Maggie, reach out to anyone that will support you, guide you, help you in any which way they can. Surround yourself with people that respect you. If when you reach out, this person makes suggestion that you don't agree with, you say no and go somewhere else. But reach out for professional, anyone that will support you in any way they can. And by God, let's try to be safe. Let's try to be safe. Safety first.
Yeah. And you're not alone. I'm hearing reach out. You're not alone.
Reach out. You're not alone. If you think that, and they're not all great. People in community organizations, some are controlling, so some are judgmental. Oh Lord. I mean, if you hear something that you'd see, that's another thing, Anita, that this makes me sad beyond words. There's some people that don't even know that people are disrespectful to them. They know, but they don't know. They cannot say it, or they block the feeling right away, and they turn to alcohol or drug to deal with this. I get.
Yeah, because we're human, right? And we are.
Yeah, we're human, and they're not treated as human. They're not treated as human. We don't do this to human beings. But recently, I have to say that I think we're losing our humanity. But that's another podcast.
So, well, yeah. You've got Elon Musk saying on one of the most popular manosphere podcasts that empathy is the downfall of human civilization.
Oh my God. Yeah, yes. Voilà.
Down to my last question, and thank you for this far-reaching conversation, and thank you for showing that degree of vulnerability and emotion, because we know you care about. We know you care about women. You just care about humans. You care about the dignity of humans. That's what it sounds like, and that's what this conversation has been about. Let's find ways to dignify folks who are working in the industry.
Yes.
If it's by choice or not by choice, they both deserve our respect. That's a small request of us, right? And let's just get over some of the really, really old-fashioned ideas about this work. So my last question, since this is a podcast about empathy, is, can you think of a time in your life when you were on the receiving end of empathy and what that meant for you?
I think I have been empathy. Yes. I'm not sure. Empathy is,
I define it as the innate trait that unites us in our common humanity.
yes, yes, I have been. Um, yes, I wouldn't be here. I keep saying I'm one lucky chick. I wouldn't be here if I had not had a teacher very early on, even if I quit school very early. I had teachers, I had people around me that supported me, gave a lot to me. So yes, I have. I have to mention a nurse that she's a healer, and she was with me. She treated me for 25 years, and one thing she connected me with was myself. This, she used to say, my essence. And I can say that she gave me back this sense of self uh, that I have today. Um, there's a spiritual side to your question, and that's why I have difficulty answering it, because I feel I was part of this magic of life, that I was given. I received a lot of gifts. I received people that believed in me, that guided me, that given me so much. And I think I'm getting some feedback today that links to what you're saying, what empathy is, with some of my colleagues and my friends at Concordia, as a matter of fact. I think this is where I'm at now. But I have to thank Jen Clement also at Stella, with whom you read the chapter on. But yes, that's what I wanted to say.
You know, I've asked this of my guests because I never know what story I'm going to hear, but everyone can think of something when they were on the receiving end of someone else's empathy. Yours included this healer, and I have a whole chapter devoted to what I call empathy superheroes. People who are in the healing profession are definitely
Yes.
empathy superheroes. And I think the question is alive for me because it stays with you, the imprint of that healer's presence with you, or the teachings or the healings. And I think I just like to be reminded. I also hope that people who are listening and watching till the very end feel uplifted by this story that you've just shared, because we can all think in our lives about moments when we were held by others. And it's not that difficult to do, to be present for someone else. You know what I mean? So I keep saying it, I'll keep saying it. Let's turn up the volume of empathy in our lives.
Yes.
Everyone wins, everyone benefits.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Francine, for this really fabulous conversation and the work you've been doing, and making time on Good Friday to record this the podcast.
And thank you for the invitation. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, see, again, it's a gift. It's a gift. I so happy, and I love the question, and hopefully my head sometimes is like, I'm all over the place. So thank you so much.
I know people are going to leave this conversation thinking differently. It's going to ignite some reflection. So with that, I want to thank everybody for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week at Purposeful Empathy.
If you know someone who would benefit from this episode, please share it with them now. Post the link to your socials, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. The world needs more empathy, and you have an important role to play.